You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, hump day, middle of the weekday, starting that long, slow glide down to Pow on a Friday and whatever insanity is going to ensue the following weekend. We have a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. As usual, we're going to do news until I run out of news, and then we're going to open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. Getting on down to Texas, the chair of Texas Power and Power Grid Operator and 4 other board members have resigned in the wake of the widespread outrage resulting from the energy crisis that crippled the state's electrical system. And according to a filing by the Public Utilities Commission of Texas, Electric Reliability Council of Texas Chair Sally Talberg, what a name, Electric Reliability Council, Sally Talberg resigned along with the Vice Chair Peter Crampton and board members Raymond Hepper, Terry Bulger, Vanessa Anisetapara. So everybody is, they're still pointing fingers back and forth, still no firm word if there's going to be some way to ameliorate the extraordinarily high electric bills people in Texas are getting because the Texas grid was forced to buy electricity from outside the state due to carbon limits imposed by the various green activists out there. So they're still sorting that mess out. Nancy Pelosi and congressional Republicans are sort of banging their heads regarding this 9/11 style commission on the events of January 6th. Nancy Pelosi has offered the GOP just 4 seats and the Democrats 7. And the GOP is saying, well, no, it should be basically closer to even because that is the makeup of the House of Representatives. But Nancy Pelosi is trying to bias the whole thing in favor of the Democrats and the Democratic version of what happened on that day. Meanwhile, another Democrat fiction has gone up in flames. The ex-Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund said he had intel that Antifa was going to be part of the January 6th attack. There have been claims made that it was completely unexpected. The FBI missed the ball. They had absolutely no idea that there was going to be violence at the Capitol, yada, 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 and so forth and so on. Senator Ron Johnson told Capitol security officials that fake Trump supporters started the Capitol riots, which we already knew. This was tailor-made to demonize Trump and the Trump supporters, to try for the second impeachment, which cratered, and now to push for ever more draconian anti-terrorism, anti-extremist laws. We mentioned this briefly yesterday. House Democrats are assaulting core press freedoms by pressuring social media corporations to target right-wing news outlets, and not just social media, the cable companies. Cable TV companies are being pressured to drop Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax, to basically block them from the airwaves. They're not even pretending there's a First Amendment right to freedom of speech in this country anymore. We are living in a dictatorship. There's the official story, and then there's everything else. Meanwhile, and it's almost embarrassing that we have to rely on a foreign country to do this, the Al Jazeera News Network is launching a new digital platform for conservative audiences in the United States. The new effort is called Rightly. It is intended to reach Republicans in the center-right who are currently underrepresented in today's media environment. So we're having to rely on Al Jazeera to provide a platform for a conservative point of view in this country. And I'm sure at some point the Democrats will figure out Muslims over there or something like that. A former advisor to Bill Clinton is sounding the alarm about Joe Biden's presidency warning Americans that the Biden administration is turning the country into a totalitarian state before our very eyes. They're absolutely accurate on that one. Dr. Naomi Wolf, who worked on Clinton's reelection campaign in 1996, warned America that Biden's administration is using the COVID-19 pandemic to strip us of all of our rights. And we're also, of course, seeing the attack on conservative points of view or any point of view that questions the official narrative about anything. So, Naomi made her comments during an appearance on Fox News, Tucker Carlson Tonight yesterday, the same day the U.S. supposedly surpassed 500,000 deaths since the start of the pandemic. And you've probably noticed the flags are flying at half staff today in remembrance of those 500,000 deaths. Now, Thomas Friedman is out there saying that democracy is facing huge problems. And he's absolutely right. We saw that was with last November's elections. If the elections are rigged, there is no more democracy. It's fraudulent elections to prop up tin pot dictatorships, although in the case of the United States, it's a gold pot dictatorship. So Thomas Friedman is a columnist with the longest tenure at the country's leading newspaper. And, he's basically observing that average work no longer returns an average wage that can sustain an average middle class lifestyle. And I saw a graphic the other day which pointed out that back when I was a kid, people who had high school degrees could get decent, high-paying jobs. Only the husband would work. The mother would stay at home. They could afford to buy a nice house. The mother would take care of the kids, and everybody was happy. Now, here we are in the 21st century where you need a college degree to get a job, let alone to pay off those huge college loans. You can't afford to have kids. You can't afford to buy a house. You're living in a really tiny apartment, especially in places like New York and Silicon Valley, and both members of the family have to work very long hours just to make ends meet. To me, that shows a nation very, very much in decline. Story coming out of station gossip, polls are showing that blue-collar voters are flocking to the Republican Party. And the conclusion is that Democrats have so embraced the hard radical left that they're losing the center Democrats, which won't make any difference in the next election if we do not get rid of those fraudulent electronic voting machines. This one is a little bit alarming. There are 36 House Democrats who are calling on President Biden to give up full control of America's nuclear weapons. They're suggesting he is not mentally fit. There's a concern that he could flip out and launch the missiles. They're forgetting the two-man rule would be in place. But the Democrats are saying that the president should relinquish full control over the nuclear weapons in favor of a committee approach. I am not entirely adverse to that idea. Given the mental state, not just of Joe Biden himself, but a lot of the people that he is surrounding himself with. In fact, there's a lesson to be learned from history. When you go back and you look at the Nazi Party and you look at the sort of people that Adolf Hitler surrounded himself with, there were a lot of deviants, poorly skilled people, and they were incredibly loyal to Hitler because they understood on their own they would not be successful. And so they owed their position and prominence and wealth to Adolf Hitler, and they would do whatever he told them. And maybe the Biden administration is planning the same strategy, which ultimately did not work out all that well for Germany. Turning over to the COVID-19 news, de Blasio is now telling New Yorkers to wear 2 masks until June. To wear 2 of those masks. And maybe de Blasio owns stock in the company that is making those masks. Joe Biden, I think we mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again here. Basically, Joe Biden came on out making the claim that the COVID vaccine has killed more people than Vietnam, Korea, World War I, and World War II combined. It is not true. It's not even close to being true. But it came out of the president's mouth, and it's either a deliberate lie or another symptom of his obviously deteriorating mental condition. Over in Orange County, California, Tim Zook, an X-ray technician, got the COVID-19 injection, the experimental injection, and 2.5 hours later began complaining of abdominal pain and trouble breathing. He was taken to the emergency room by his co-workers, and basically there was a series of tests where congestive heart failure and COVID-19 itself were ruled out. He was sent home. His wife basically texted the husband's doctor, should I be worried? And actually Zook texted back, absolutely not. 4 days after getting the shot, he was dead. Story coming on out of Bethesda.com. There is a study that was conducted up in Wisconsin showing that there is almost zero viral transmission from youth sporting events. And, this is flying in the face of the official recommendations here, which are trying to shut down school sports. They're making kids play with masks, which is actually a greater health threat to the kids than the coronavirus. Dr. Fauci is now out there saying that even with the vaccination, you should avoid theaters and indoor dining. And I think Dr. Fauci's notoriety is going to his head. And I think he's got delusions of godhood, to be very honest. He's out there, at 10 o'clock in the morning, he makes a statement. At 11 o'clock, he contradicts it. At noon, he contradicts the 11 o'clock statement, and so forth throughout the entire day. Now, here's an interesting theory being put out from uns.com, and it's responding to the front page article in the New York Times that reported a new mutated version of the coronavirus was likely to be more contagious or lethal than the original. And according to the Times, the new iteration of the infection could resist conventional treatments and force lockdown nations to extend the timeline for lifting restrictions. The question here, is this really a serious complication in COVID, or is it just more propaganda to scare people into getting vaccinated? And we have seen how much pressure is being exerted to try and get everybody vaccinated with these experimental vaccines, which have never, ever before now been used on human beings. It's a brand new technology. It's not actually approved for use by the FDA. They have been granted an emergency use waiver. And by the way, under the Nuremberg principles and under U.S. law, you can refuse treatment with an unapproved experimental medication. Legally, they can't force you to take it. They can coerce you, and there's a lot of coercion going on there. Meanwhile, according to a Pentagon report, almost 3/4 of U.S. troops are refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, maybe this has something to do with how experimental vaccines led to Gulf War syndrome, and the troops are remembering how the government just abandoned them and said, oh, it's all in your head, and we're not going to pay the medical bills. But 3/4 of U.S. troops do not want that vaccine. So, Israel has adopted a law allowing the names of unvaccinated people to be made public. Talk about coercive means. And I imagine this is going to result in lists of the unvaccinated being checked when you try to go to a restaurant or go to your bank or go to the hardware store or grocery store. Again, it's another way of public shaming people who are refusing to get this unapproved experimental vaccine. And we need to keep remembering that. It's not officially approved. It's been granted an emergency use waiver, and it is experimental. There has never been an mRNA vaccine trial involving humans to this point. Up in Ontario, they are spending $2.5 million on little bracelets that beep if users get too close. So if everybody's wearing these bracelets and you get within 6 feet away from one another, the bracelet will give you a little tiny beep. Absolutely would not want one of those. Meanwhile, over at Bill Gates' castle, if you will, he has funded a program to basically create a digital identity for people based on their vaccination history, which means if you don't get vaccines, you are a non-person in Bill Gates' system. But that's basically the latest thing coming from Bill Gates, the same man who gave us Windows 10. David at Crucial Nonsense is saying the next bracelet gives a 10,000 vote shock. I imagine it would here. Like I said, this is all coming from the man who gave us Windows Vista, Windows Millennium Edition, and Windows 10. So I'm not eager to go down this way. Interestingly enough, we've been talking about this new COVID bill, and the Democrats are trying to push it. It's $1.9 trillion with a T dollars. And the Republicans are fighting it, and the media is demonizing the Republicans. Oh, they're making the COVID sufferers, worse. But the GOP issue is that there's very little of the COVID bill actually going to deal with COVID, and a lot of it is just filled up with liberal pork spending. For example, there is $1 billion for racial justice for farmers, $50 million for environmental justice grants, $112 million for the beleaguered California Transit Project, $10 million for Native American language preservation, $200 million for museum and library services, $750 million for global health, $750 million for Native American housing, more millions for expansion of Obamacare subsidies, billions for public schools, whether they reopen or not, and more pet projects for powerful lawmakers. It's just a big, big pork barrel. And I don't blame the GOP for standing firm on it and saying, let's pass a bill that deals with the COVID and deal with these other issues as separate bills. And the Democrats are stamping their feet and rolling around on the floor and, just having a huge, huge tantrum. All right. So getting over to the international news, Biden appears to be committing to forever war on Afghanistan. This is already the second longest war America has been in outside of Korea. It's been nearly 20 years, $1 trillion, and they've accomplished not much of anything. And part of the problem is that the objectives were never really clear. There was an attempt to impose some kind of enlightened model of governance on the Afghan people, but that fell apart when the first installed president of Afghanistan was Hamid Karzai, formerly of UNOCAL. So it's really not working. Afghanistan's a tough place, and it looks like Biden wants to raise on a busted flush. Up in Canada, their parliament, with a 266-0 vote, has declared China's treatment of the Uyghurs as a genocide. And meanwhile, of course, Biden is remaining silent. He made that comment last week about, well, this is just China being China. China, of course, was very upset about that. But a lot of people are looking at what's going on there and wondering why the United States, which was eager to go into Afghanistan and eager to go into Syria and eager to go into, well, pretty much every place else that had oil, is staying silent on the human rights abuses being carried out by China. A little bit of selective situation. All right. Alexei Navalny, rented lips, has been stripped of his label as a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International, apparently for decades-old comments he made on immigration that he made long, long ago. But apparently it doesn't fit with the current world model, and so now he has lost his prisoner of conscience label. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We are living in dangerous days, and I am frightened by what you say. It chills right to the core, this talk of holy war.
Welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network may be looking at an absolutely gargantuan electric bill this month following the freeze. As you can imagine, it takes a fair amount of electricity to run all the equipment in a radio system. There's computers, there's mixers, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. And it does draw a lot of current. Here in Santa Claus, our electric bill is about half the computer systems in this room and over in Claire's studio across the hall. And everything else is kind of less than that. Anyway, just a reminder, we need your help. And if you would care to support Republic Broadcasting, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer, anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And if you mail in a donation of $100 or more, include your t-shirt size and a return address, and you will get a spiffy official RBN t-shirt and the associated bragging rights. And don't forget, the Front Sight Firearms promotion is back on again. So all the contact information is at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. All righty. Over in Israel, they are once again looking at acquiring more weapons from the United States, using money that they got from the United States. But apparently, ministers have signed off on the purchase of another 25 Lockheed F-35 stealth fighters and 4 Boeing KC-46 refueling tankers. It's only part of a larger $9.4 billion shopping list presented by the Israeli Air Force. But apparently the political paralysis and personal rivalry between Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Benny Gantz slowed the process down, and nobody knows when the next stages will be approved. All right. An Israeli cybersecurity firm announced yesterday that China is using a hacking tool initially developed by the U.S. National Security Agency. And if you remember, a few years ago, somebody basically dumped all the NSA hacking tools onto the web, and a lot of people scarfed them up at that point. So Checkpoint Software Technologies is out there pointing the finger at China, saying that the malware dubbed Jian exploits a vulnerability in Windows. And it said the exploit was a replica of one used by the secretive Equation Group at the NSA. So there we are. Interesting little story that came out of Haaretz, no less. It's an opinion piece saying, I'm tired of American Jews making excuses for Netanyahu and his Proud Boy allies. And basically says, no more excuses, please. And basically he's talking about the neo-fascism of Itamar Ben-Gvir and the band of thugs that he has around him, trying to basically shift things around in the Israel political arena. We talked about this yesterday, and this is a little more confirmation. Israel has imposed a gag order on a probe into the oil spill dubbed the most serious ecological disaster in years. And Israeli authorities have closed down miles and miles of beaches in the country. It's the most serious ecological disaster in recent years after an oil spill from an unknown origin occurred some dozens of miles off the coast into the Mediterranean Sea. Sounds like maybe it might be a repeat of the Deepwater Horizon disaster. But whatever it is, Israel wants a lid kept on it. Right now, an estimated 106 miles of coastline have been impacted, stretching from Israel through the Gaza Strip and apparently up to southern Lebanon's coastline. So it's a bad one. No question about it. It is a bad one. All right, talking about the economic news, the Federal Reserve had some kind of a problem today. And they issued a statement at 2 p.m. Eastern Time saying the Federal Reserve Bank staff is currently investigating a disruption to multiple services. We will continue to provide updates as soon as they are available. So the Fed apparently is down, and all FRB services are offline, including ACH and FedWire. Something happened there. Maybe it's the beginning of the Great Reset. Saudi Arabia is being sued by families of the Pensacola terror attack victims. This is yet another lawsuit in the U.S. filed by the families of victims in a terror attack perpetrated supposedly by a Saudi citizen. Now, this happened back on December 6th, 2019. A 21-year-old member of the Saudi military opened fire on Americans staying at the naval base, carrying out a shooting rampage that led to the deaths of 3 Americans with 13 others wounded. All right. Excuse me. We have to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Here at Republic Broadcasting Network, we have been building our online store. Well, we have been focusing on bringing you the best talk show host in the country. Here at Republic Broadcasting Network, we also want our listeners to have products they can use every day and in times of emergency. We have added new products each week to our store. Your support of this network, plus products at the best prices, is a win-win situation. Check out our new store. Go to our website, republicbroadcasting.org, and click on the online store located at the top of our website. Together, we can continue to grow RBN and help our listeners prepare for the future. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and click on our online store or call us
800-724-2719 extension 3. 800-724-2719 extension 3.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Corporations, Wall Street and the banks rule our politicians. They don't deserve our thanks, and they tell us the banks are too big to fail, when the banksters all need to be in jail.
Welcome back to our show here. And we have, over the past years, commented on how the military-industrial complex is producing very expensive weapons systems that just don't really live up to their cost. They're notorious for not really getting that much bang per buck. And again, I want to refer you back to a book and a movie called The Pentagon Wars, which is based on the true story of the development of the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. And the movie is actually quite fun to watch. And it stars Kelsey Grammer. Was directed by Richard Benjamin, and it really is an inside look to how weapons acquisition works in the United States. So we have been talking about some of the very expensive weapons that really aren't performing, such as the F-22, which is still asphyxiating its pilots at high altitude. A huge laundry list of problems with the F-35. I don't even know why Israel wants them. the Zumwalt stealth destroyer, which is very unstable in rough seas and not all that stealthy. All the problems with the Gerald R. Ford, where it may never actually be a combat-worthy platform, and of course the Freedom and Independence class littoral combat vessels. Well, last week the U.S. Navy formally announced it will soon begin to retire the first 4 of its littoral combat ships. 2 from the Freedom class and 2 from the Independence class. These warships were only commissioned 6 years ago. And the vessels have had all kinds of problems, mostly technical, operational, and the retirement of the 4 vessels amounts to a tacit acknowledgement by the Navy that the Freedom and Independence class vessels are effectively a failed concept. I actually disagree with that. I think the concept was good, the execution failed. The concept behind these vessels was that all of the various weapon systems were in these modules that could be swapped in and out of the hull to rapidly reconfigure the ship for a specific mission. And to me, that's actually a really good idea if you can get it to work. But they were not able to get it work. I remember seeing a documentary about the first sea trials for one of these ships, and they had to have the final test of the guns tied up at the dock. That's how bad it was. And this downsizing is coming even in the middle of the U.S. Navy's push toward a 355 ship fleet. So, yeah, good idea, bad execution. I do think it was a good idea, just the engineering wasn't there. Turning to the economic news, there is an article that came on out from Natural News. And let me preface it by saying we've been talking over the years about how media is being consolidated and is in the hands of a very few people. Everything that you see, hear, and read goes through maybe 12 hands total that sort of get together and say, this is what we're going to sell America today. Well, the same thing is happening in America's food supply. And back in the 1980s, the food supply started to undergo some serious changes. A few large agribusiness companies began gobbling up the little guys, which we were told would make food cheaper and more abundant. The reality today is Americans are more food insecure than ever before. And according to 2019 data from the Department of Agriculture, more than 35 million people living in the U.S. did not have reliable access to affordable, nutritious food that year. The figure skyrocketed even higher since the COVID-19 pandemic. All right. 2 Senate committees have postponed Wednesday hearings with Neera Tanden, who's President Biden's pick to lead the Office of Management and Budget. So Biden is starting to run into some resistance regarding the cabinet he is trying to put together. Down at the border with Mexico, they're overwhelmed right now by thousands of migrant children just flooding across the border after Biden reversed the Trump policy. And the floodgates are now open. They don't know what to do with them. And so once again, kids, while they're being processed, are having to sleep in these little wire mesh cages. And of course, now that it's a Democrat doing it, it's not a big deal for the Democrats. They're silent. So about this treatment of illegal immigrant children. Apparently, Jen Psaki got rather annoyed with Peter Doocy, saying the Biden administration putting kids in cages is not keeping kids in cages, and somehow it's all the fault of the COVID pandemic anyway. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. A judge has now blocked enforcement of Biden's moratorium on most deportations. Now, Joe Biden's administration wanted a pause on most deportations until further notice. The judge ruled late last Tuesday, no, Biden can't do that. The deportations have to go ahead. U.S. District Judge Drew Tipton, a Trump appointee, agreed to issue a preliminary injunction requested by the state of Texas. Acting Homeland Security Director David Pekoski directed in a memorandum an immediate pause on removal of any non-citizen with a final order of removal for 100 days. The Texas officials then sued. Mitch McConnell, interestingly enough, has announced his support for the open borders radical Merrick Garland for Attorney General. We were talking about him and some of his views yesterday, where he refused to say crossing the border was a crime. And he's very much pro gun control, or anti-gun, if you will. Speaking of gun control, Joe Biden is going after the so-called ghost guns. This is his first move on firearms control. He's coming under pressure from the extreme left progressives for not doing enough. I mean, they're still out there saying, just do a gun grab, just confiscate everything. But Biden wants to regulate the ghost guns and, at least get them out of circulation. Now, for those who don't know what I mean, a ghost gun is what you build out of an 80% complete lower receiver and a bunch of spare parts, because under the law, it is that lower receiver that is legally the gun. And companies are able to make the casting of that lower receiver, but they can't machine it out, or it becomes a gun and has to have a serial number and associated paperwork. So they sell these unmachined castings. They're called 80%ers. And gun enthusiasts with simple machine shop tools can finish routing them out, install the parts, and build a working AR-15 rifle, which does not have a serial number and does not have to be registered. And Joe Biden wants to go after those. The interesting thing is that nobody's ever actually committed a crime using a ghost gun. If you really think about how much work that goes into one of those, it's something a hobbyist is doing or a gun rights advocate is doing. Somebody who's going to rob the local, convenience store, they're going to go downtown and buy a Saturday night special handgun from the black market and use that. Except for staged shootings to push the gun grabber agenda, nobody uses those AR-15s for anything but punching holes in paper and protecting their homes. Over in Missouri, Newton County has enacted the Second Amendment Preservation Act, allowing local law enforcement to arrest federal agents who attempt to enforce laws in the county that violate the Second Amendment. And it declares all such laws null and void. The act requires the courts and law enforcement agencies to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens to keep and bear arms. And it's the start of a trend, because also in Missouri, Mercer County in northern Missouri has declared itself a Second Amendment sanctuary county as of yesterday. And here's where the gun grabbers are really going to be whining and wailing and gnashing their teeth. This is from Zero Hedge, and yes, I did link it to whatreallyhappened.com. It now only costs $350 to 3D print an entire gun. That's $315, including the cost of the 3D printer. Now, that is really amazing. Now, it's coming from an organization called Deterrence Dispensed. This is an online group that promotes and distributes open source 3D printed firearms, and they've designed a fully functional 3D printable semi-automatic pistol caliber carbine in 9mm. And they were made widely available on the internet late last year, and now they've got a printer, 3D printer, that will allow you to do so economically. Now, there is one catch, and that is the barrel of the gun itself, which will not work if 3D printed. That has to be machined out. But it's a simple metal tube, and anybody with basic machine skills can put that one together. But that's amazing. I mean, I've wanted to play with a 3D printer myself, and if the price has really come down that low, I want to make little tiny statues of Claire. That's what I want to do. All right, getting into our woke news, if you will. There is a story that came out of Bethesda, and it's actually been all over the place here. The number of Americans who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender has increased in recent years, especially among young people. I think that is not a result of any growing awareness, but of this sales campaign that we're seeing. I mean, they're teaching this stuff in the schools that, you should want this kind of stuff, that, it's hip to be transgender, it's hip to be gay. And it's a sales pitch, and I'm not exactly sure why they are pushing it as hard as they are. They're trying to go back to this world where we're not even sure what restroom we're supposed to use. Meanwhile, there is a pro-family news outlet that was censored by Twitter for posting a Biden administration official's actual biological sex. 3 guesses who they're talking about. Meanwhile, Microsoft, together with a few other tech and media corporations, is forming a coalition to censor, quote, disinformation, end quote, online, meaning anything that is not aligning with the official statement about anything at all. And disinformation and fake news have become prevalent buzzwords to create a justification for censorship in the digital age. But we know where the fake news is really coming from, and it's not coming from our YouTube account. I mean, there are a lot of people planted in social media to put out a lot of junk that can be pointed to and say, see, the net must be brought under control. I remember back when they were first discussing the Telecommunications Act, and there was this Senator Exxon, who proposed an amendment having to do with controlling pornography on the internet. And the month before he made that proposal, the internet was flooded with porn. Now, these were the days of Usenet. And Usenet was broken up into little groups that you could sign up for. And there were cooking groups and woodworking groups, photography groups and basketry groups and all kinds of different interesting things. And there was a separate hierarchy called alt, where more adult things could be posted. But these people were posting stuff everywhere, every one of the groups. And, people would say, look, this stuff doesn't belong in this group. Go over to the alt hierarchy. And the original poster would come back and say, I have a First Amendment right to post this stuff here, and you can't stop me. So we started tracking their IP addresses, and sure enough, they all went back to government and military computers. So Senator Exxon proposed his amendment. It was debated. It was pared down. And as soon as it got through Congress, the flood of porn onto the internet absolutely stopped. It was like somebody turned off a faucet. And so that's an example of the kind of propaganda efforts that we see on the internet to make us look bad, to kookify us, along with fake Apollo moon landings and chemtrails and, Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot's love child and Planet 9 and Flat Earth and all the rest of that stuff. All right, story coming out of Natural News. It's titled Liberals Hate White People, Including Themselves, as Everything is Racist Now, Including Math, Correct Answers, and the Muppets. And that was the one that really surprised me. I don't know about you. I was a huge fan of the Muppets. I got to meet Jim Henson and work with him briefly when he was starting to think about using computers for some of his characters, and he came over to Robert Abel and Associates, and we all sat around talking and had a really, really good time. But now all of a sudden, Muppets are deemed racist, and there's like a disclaimer that has to be broadcast before the shows go. But it's just reached this point where, the idea of showing your math work is racist is really utterly, utterly absurd. Getting into the science news, Northrop Grumman boosted a Cygnus cargo ship into orbit heading to the space station. It was a picture-perfect launch from Virginia's eastern shore, carrying more than 8,000 pounds of supplies and equipment for the ISS. The rocket used 2 Russian-built RD-181 first-stage engines and pushed the booster up from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Island, Virginia, which has been part of the space program going back back to the very, very early days. All right, the U.S. Navy launched a secret project back in May of 2020. It is a 12 by 12 inch solar panel. It was launched into space on a secret U.S. space plane and is mounted on a drone that is in low Earth orbit. And it is a prototype for a system that could one day beam power from space to anywhere on Earth. Until a bird flies into that microwave beam, of course, then there's going to be a problem. And Juno out there at Jupiter saw another space rock crash into Jupiter back when it was the comet smack. It was like a big deal. And since then, they've discovered Jupiter gets hit by large objects all the time. All righty, we're going to open the phone lines now. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through healthyworldstore.com.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry, because we are offering $200 off on the new Easy 4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too. Ease Off LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
Welcome back to our show here. The phone lines are now open. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to start with Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm first again. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So you talked about that Parliament vote up here in Canada against Chinese oppression.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like the most important thing that you didn't mention was almost none of the Liberals, including Justin Trudeau, voted at all.
Okay.
They didn't even vote. They abstained. That's their way of saying, well, you know, we think what they're doing is right, but we're just not going to voice our opinion on it.
Okay. Good to know.
This is coming from a guy, Trudeau, that said he admired China's dictatorship, or what did he call it? Basic dictatorship.
Yeah.
So you know what he has in store for us up here, unless we get rid of this bum.
Well, you know, they've got the same thing in store for us down here. I mean, you know, if liberals can support what the Chinese are doing, then they'll support, you know, the Democrats doing the same thing to Republicans down here.
Right, because Biden, he didn't he put some kind of pause, 90-day pause on outside foreigners tampering with the getting involved with United States power grid, right?
Yeah, but I think that was an effort to initially try and blame the Texas blackouts on China. That didn't get any traction, of course.
Well, you know, these politicians, they're all liars. I mean, they use and abuse each other. You know, it's a shame that they just don't take each other out back and, you know, do away with each other. Also,
no. That would be a waste. That would be a waste. The ideal solution is we take them and we put them in the Coliseum with chainsaws and let them deal with each other. And the one who comes out with the most bodily parts gets to be president. And then we sell the television rights and we could pay off the national debt.
Yeah, I knew something like that was coming. Now it's chainsaws, eh?
Yes.
Well, that's real fancy. I also sent a video, and I think I know why you didn't post it. This guy coming in from Pearson International Airport. I think there's some foul language he uses, right?
Yes.
I sent it to you a couple hours ago. Anyway, the guy's, you know, up here, when you come in from another country, except, of course, if you're an elitist, you have to have a test, which isn't really a test. It's nothing. So, but they still have to have that swab shoved up your nose, and then you have to quarantine in a hotel that you have to pay for.
Yes.
Right? And he refused. And, you know, I was saying this a couple of weeks ago. They were suggesting this. It goes against our Charter of Rights, you know, the Canadian Constitution, to do such a thing. And he's absolutely right. And the police that were there agreed with him. So what they do is they issue you a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to court and fight it, and thousands of people have been issued these things, and no one has been charged. Oh, there's the music. I'm going to cut myself off again, Mike. I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to take a station identification break here. Back with more phone calls after these few words.
Have you been looking for a trusted long-term storable food company? We have a solution for you. Simply Clean Foods is dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Our line of resealable fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away valuable groceries ever again. Our food is completely GMO-free, and our stringent quality controls, plus testing for heavy metals, makes us unique in the storable foods market. Simply Clean Foods' primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. When you purchase from simplycleanfoods.net, not only will you be receiving high-quality food, but you will also be supporting veterans in need across the country and those who are affected by natural disasters. Right now, Amazon Prime members will receive fast 2-day shipping. Go to simplycleanfoods.net. That's simplycleanfoods.net. But do it today.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to go to Dan in Washington. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. Well, I had two topics, immigration and America being a one-party system.
Yes.
But just real quick on immigration, people talk about eugenics, and it's become an anti-white propaganda piece to always go back about Margaret Sanger, because if you look at the 1965 Immigration Act, it was deliberately designed to make white Americans a minority. And white Americans never voted for that,
No.
and were against it. So you had some people like David Duke and, others who were raising concern, and they were demonized, politically oppressed. And David Duke even got falsely thrown in jail.
Yes.
And Pat Buchanan, in the show before yours, you had Joe Arpaio in Arizona, and they brought up fake charges on him and threw him in jail, or tried to. So, yeah, it's just, it does meet the definition of genocide. People say, well, that's overblowing it because they think genocide is just, shooting people in the head and stuff. But, if you're creating circumstances where one group is encouraged not to have kids, and opening the borders so another group replaces them, that does meet the UN definition of genocide. So
it's a slow genocide.
I don't really, exactly. So, callers call in and say, well, I'm not racist. I don't care if whites. I think there's something wrong if people don't care if their own people get wiped out, just on a human level. That's not natural to not care. But that doesn't mean, I don't go around hating other groups. There's plenty of, if there's a little bit of mixing or whatever, it's not a huge concern, but the big issues are what they are. So, that's kind of my thing is, if someone's not on your side on that, it's like, and Americans never wanted that. So if we can't even change that as Americans, then what are we going to do about saving gun rights or, free speech or any of this crap? We have not even been able to do that for 40 years, really, in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very disappointing.
It is very disappointing. It is very frustrating. It's heartbreaking.
Yep.
And, again, I know that the phone calls about violent revolution have toned down since January 6th, but it's still definitely out there. And we're seeing articles about, we've reached the point where it's time for mass civil disobedience with the election system broken and totally fraudulent. What other means do we have to bring about change in this country? As John F. Kennedy used to say, when peaceful revolution becomes impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable. And I'm afraid we're about to prove Kennedy right.
Yeah, that brings me to my second point. Like, Peter made some great points about who really controls the system. So,
yes,
if you look at the Soviet Union, they did throw off the yoke of, they were mostly Jewish Bolsheviks, but they were, they started the Bolshevik Revolution, all the head commissars, the head proletariat, and eventually the Russian people, they still had a lot of Jews in power, but they took back control on a racial, tribal level, kind of by the 1960s or 70s. So, and they did that with a one-party state. And I think America, it would be better just having one party at this point.
I
Because
disagree wholeheartedly.
either one party.
I'd rather
Right.
have
I know
5 parties, 10 parties.
Yeah, that would be better too. But the two-party system, the way I see it's like the worst because they can just divide and conquer, and that's all I've seen, for decades. So I would like to see the one party just totally take, and I've tried to work with the Republicans. You had the Reform Party, Libertarian Party, that went nowhere. All these movements have failed. The conservative movement failed to conserve anything except Reagan's tax cuts and free trade and all that stuff. So I just, I guess it's something to think about. I guess it, either have a bunch of parties or one party, but I'd like to see this two-party thing go away. It's just got to go away.
So would I, but I would absolutely be opposed to a single party country because all it does is preserve the status quo. And we can learn a lesson from the Soviet Union, which in the supposed quest to produce a classless society actually generated the most powerful ruling class in history.
That's true, but the one good lesson of that is they did throw off the yoke of those original psychotic Bolshevik killers, eventually. So,
well, eventually most
anyway,
of them died.
Yeah, that's true too. Natural causes. All right.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. When you're young, you can say, well, just, wait till these, old bastards in power die off and then we'll be okay. But when you're my age, you really don't have that luxury anymore. All right. We're going to go to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, be gentle. What is on your mind today?
Yeah, Mike, I didn't want to talk about this, but this guy, every time he calls, he gets me stirred up, okay? The fact of the matter is eugenics is evil. There's no other word for it. Pat Buchanan, Sheriff Arpaio, and even David Duke are not eugenicists. They're against abortion. They're for life, okay?
Yes.
Eugenics is evil. Margaret Sanger was an evil witch.
I think you misheard Dan. I think you misheard Dan. I think you misheard him because he was saying that people like David Duke and Pat Buchanan and Sheriff Arpaio were against the open borders immigration policy.
Okay, I thought he was trying, but he just mentioned their names, and they were against open immigration. Anybody with any common sense would be against open immigration policies because the country can only afford to have so many people in it of any color.
That's true.
Okay, no, there's no question about it. I'm also against the robotizing of our country too. Anything that hurts the working man, I'm against. But I just wanted to bring up
with you on that. I mean, I think computers are cool and computers are fun and robots are fascinating to play with. But we do need to preserve jobs for the working man and woman to be able to afford to put a roof over their head and food on the table for their children. And, if this automation thing gets completely out of hand, we're looking at a future of shopping malls staffed by robot sales staff standing around with absolutely nothing to do because no customers are coming through the door because they're all out of work.
Yeah, to me, automation is as much a danger, if not more of a danger, than unrestricted immigration. They're both bad. They're both an attack on the working people of this country, and they're both an attack on the United States of America and our Constitution, which is so important to me. Way more important than the color of the people, let's say in 50 or 100 years from now, which would probably be some light shade of brown or something like that, because that's the way that's what happens when you have a lot of immigration from different parts of the world. In some ways, it's not good, and in some ways, it's good because in some ways, mixing you getting rid of a lot of the bad genes. That actually is a form of I shouldn't even mention that, but actually, it's true. When you mix, I'm big into dogs, and breeding dogs and all that. And you breed it's known that a dog that's not full bred is usually healthier than a dog that's of selective breeding or inbreeding or whatever else. And inbreeding is terrible for any race of people and for any country. But anyway, I just want to go to something you mentioned before about, Biden and his, taking his finger off that trigger. I saw recently, I hate to admit I got Prime, but I got to have something to watch. I was better than Netflix, okay?
Okay.
And I was watching an old movie. You probably know Dr. Strangelove.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Classic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that so true? I mean, he was a general who was out of his mind, who he did start World War III at the end, okay? Because that one B-52 got through. Today, though, the general, what was his name again? R.T. Ripper. No, Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
Today's Jack the Rippers are mostly politicians, and starting with an idiot like Biden, who's not even, who's not all there anymore, who's basically, in many ways, doesn't even know what planet he's on. This is so dangerous, Mike. It's incredible. I mean, I don't know what's more dangerous, to have that clown in charge or to have computers in charge, like in the Terminator, and you know what happened there,
Yes.
I mean, it's fiction, but it could happen. I mean, geez, this is, that's a scary thought, because it wouldn't take much. You got to I know if I was Vladimir Putin today, I would be on a hair trigger right now, watching what's going on in the United States and knowing this is a country with thousands of nuclear weapons and the means of delivery. As Russia has the same thing. But I would be very concerned knowing that you got this metal case in charge today, somebody like Biden. I mean, a lot of people say, well, Russia was actually behind the phony election this time on Biden's side. I don't believe that. I think
I don't either.
Smart man. He understands how dangerous. I don't know about the Chinese now, because they pretty much own Biden. But as far as Russia goes, Putin's a very smart man, very intelligent, very steeped in history, and I think he understands very well to have a country as powerful as the United States that's now unstable, to say the least. And just as if Russia was in that condition right now, I think we'd be very concerned. There's very much to be concerned about. This man is dangerous. The people under him are dangerous. And it looks like he's getting it looks like he's picking up, you talk about nursing homes. It looks like this is what he's getting his people out of the nursing homes. Like I see this Attorney General there, Garland.
Yes.
He looks like he was also an escapee from a nursing home or something. I know, I shouldn't talk like, I understand that people, it's an unfortunate thing, but you don't want them running the country. This is what you've got. You've got boomers and pre-boomers that are now, I guess you could say it's their last stand, and they wanted it. It's not even the good boomers, not the boomers who actually went into the military and stuff like that. These are the boomers who are out in the street yelling and screaming and hating America and refusing to go into the military and this and that, calling baby killers and all that. And yet they're the ones now running the country and pushing the war machine, which is crazy, right? I mean, that's all I got to say, Mike. I know you got other people out there, okay, waiting. So, we're in trouble. That's all I can say.
Oh, yeah, there's no question we're in trouble. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I think you know what's on my mind, Mike, and this is the last call in the world that I wanted to make. But my first question to you is, when Nathan first called in, the very first time that he said he wanted me and a number of other people dead because we were Trump bashers, do you have any examples? Do you recall me as having been a Trump basher?
I honestly cannot remember that far back, but if you'll look at yesterday's show, Nathan actually called on in and he did apologize for those comments he made.
Don't deviate from my question. If somebody was a severe Trump basher, it should register on your mind. Do you recall me as
there were
being
so
a Trump
many
basher?
No, I can't recall. I honestly cannot recall.
That's all I needed to hear, because I can tell you that for 6 years from the time that Trump declared himself a candidate, I lost a lot of friends arguing with them, saying that Trump was the best option, and I waited moment by moment during the campaign, during the election, and subsequent to his being elected. I was hoping and praying that he would be what I said he would be, the man who would fix the problems. Not simply the lesser evil because of Hillary Clinton, but that he would be the man who would fix many problems. Instead,
Well, that was
I only lost
bit of a disappointment.
I only lost faith in Trump in the way he handled events after the election that Biden's people took. But I'll give you an example. When I was an anchor, a TV news anchor,
Okay.
one of the first questions I would ask of anybody who made a claim as outrageous as so-and-so is a basher, I would say, what evidence do you give us an example? I'm wondering why you never asked Nathan, how has Layla and all the other people that you named, how have they actually bashed Trump? Bash is a very strong word. It actually even implies using an instrument to bash someone on the head or on anywhere on the body.
Well, it's a metaphor.
Never mind a verbal assault. Did you ever think to ask him what did he mean by Trump basher and what proof did he have for making that claim? Because Israelis always make a statement, no one denies it or questions it, and then it becomes fact.
Okay, well, as I stated before, I absolutely do not recall those conversations from that long ago. You know, I do this show every single day. I'll deal with all the callers.
Then, Mike, one of the most important things of a show host is to have a good memory and to know which caller is actually being a problem and is actually detracting from the credibility of yourself and the institution you represent. One thing that I would always do when I was interviewing somebody is look up their history if I didn't already know it personally, watch if they had a handler who was indoctrinating them with their talking points to prevent me from getting the questions answered that I would ask. And then I would ask them for proof, and I would not let up unless I had proof that what they said was true. I never.
Well, that's a luxury. That's a luxury you had on TV. That's a luxury you had on TV.
No, I had 3 minutes for every interview. For every live interview.
Layla, let me make a point here.
You allowed someone to terrify me of the possibility who could be an Israeli who is targeting me. Do you think I haven't lived with that all my life? Especially why do you think I got out of the public eye?
Layla, when people call into the show like you, Layla, are you going to let me talk? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
When people call into this show, I don't have the luxury of being able to look into their background because all I get is a first name and a general location where they are. I certainly do not have the staff to look to see, if they have a handler, how would I know? Because they're on the other end of a very, very long phone line. Now, before I let you go, I got a question.
Do not let me go, Mike, until I've asked you one more question.
One more question.
And first of all, as soon as you hear their voice, you know who they are. And you allow him to once again repeat his ha-ha.
Okay, ask your question. We're almost out of time. Ask your question.
Why did you remind him that I had gone crazy on Friday? You said to him, if you wanted to see Layla bouncing off the walls, you should have listened on Friday. On Friday,
well, because you did bounce off the walls on Friday, we were very worried about you.
Let me finish.
Okay, you're doing a close second today.
Mike, you ridiculed me. I had information that a 6-year-old refugee that I had been supporting had died. And he died from injuries that were caused by American bombs. While Americans in Texas that I feel sorry for were experiencing shortages, they never had bombs dropping on them at the same time. So I was very distressed.
Layla,
distressed by the death of this child.
I understand your distress. I can hear. I could.
Mike,
Layla,
you're the one,
Layla, I have a question for you. I have a question for you.
With you.
I have a question for you. Somebody called in yesterday
You listening?
and they wanted a clarification on the correct way to pronounce your name because so many people have said it so many different ways. How do you pronounce your name?
That's a nice distraction. It doesn't really matter how I pronounce my name. That was the
All
sweet
right.
lady
Well,
who
then
called.
thank you for the
But I
phone
want
call.
to
We
know
got to take
who
a commercial
challenged-
break and we'll be right back.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Please view, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stop terrorism. Please contact us if you or anyone you know who wants to be on our show at thetruthpharmacy@gmail.com. Keep it real. Take the red pill.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The tower.
Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones. John in Utah. Hello, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mr. Rivero, can you hear me all right?
I hear you fine. You're on the air.
Great. Hey, I actually just came across you last night.
Oh, really?
I saw this, a YouTube video entitled 43 minutes and 33 seconds entitled, loading, All Wars Are Bankers' Wars.
Yes.
And I was very, very impressed by how much you covered in that 43 minutes. So I had to figure out who you were and found you had a radio show, and had to tune in today. Listened to a bit of it even last night on the podcast app. Would you happen to know where that rant, if you will, originated from? By just saying a video entitled of you speaking, All Wars Are Bankers' Wars?
Well, it began with an article. It began with an article that was written for the website whatreallyhappened.com, and in fact, it is permanently linked at the top of the main page. There's a little gray box with the permanent articles, and one of them is All Wars Are Banker Wars, and there's actually a lot more information in there than was aired on the radio broadcast, which was what was taken to make the soundtrack for that video.
Okay, yes, that's awesome. That's something I definitely want to check out. Boy, Layla was a bit impassioned. I actually caught I caught the caller portion of your show recorded from the day before on the podcast app last night, and heard that other gentleman call in and speak a bit about that, and with his very sincere apology. But,
well, Layla's knowledge of history and religion is encyclopedic, and
she,
when she's
someone in
talking
that
about
space?
what she wants to talk about, she's very good. But when she gets into an adversarial situation, she doesn't handle it graciously, to be gentle.
Well, I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but as far as her encyclopedic knowledge, is she then another voice out there with a show or books or a blog or something, or is she just a caller of the show?
As far as I know, she's a caller of many shows, of which mine is one, and maybe she should write a book. That's actually a very, very good idea. Because I've learned a lot from her that I had not encountered before. And I think a book would be a really, really good idea.
Hey, is there any other shows off the top of your head that you would recommend?
Well, there's, John Stadmiller's show, which follows mine. And that's a good one to listen to. And for personal reasons, I don't recommend radio shows that are not part of the Republic Broadcasting Network.
Right. And I was so very impressed with your talk on All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. I've never heard someone encapsulate so much information in such a narrow amount of time, and I look.
Well, you really should read the article because there's a lot more in there. The articles, in my opinion, the article is definitely better.
Yes, I will after this phone call. One other thing, from the outset of Trump's presidency on November 2016, when he was elected, I never could see people's support for President Trump. It always makes me scratch my head.
Okay.
How he speaks and conducts himself, always. I will never assume that that's a man of character or a man that's going to be fighting for our interests. As a man who's always been a part of that elite system and benefited from it, I would never be able to believe that he one day woke up and decided he was going to, fight for America. It's always a head scratcher for me.
Well, I think to be brutally honest, in 2016, it was less that people supported Trump and more that they did not want Hillary Clinton in that White House. And that's what produced the landslide that even election fraud could not overcome in 2016.
Well, absolutely. But then I, perhaps a bit conspiratorially or, a bit of a skeptic, I wouldn't think that anyone would ever reach the White House unless they were foreordained to do so. And
I think that's why
understand.
they were opposed to Trump, is because he pulled it off. He was an outsider. He wasn't part of the club. He wasn't part of the war machine. And if you look at how official Washington and the media treated him during his entire term in office, it's very obvious that, in their opinion, he wasn't supposed to be there, that he had somehow usurped Hillary's position in the Oval Office. Anyway, John, we got to take a commercial break. I'm going to let you go here. Thank you for the phone call. I'm glad you liked Banker Wars, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Extendivite has proven time and again it really works. Here's a testimonial from Amazon.com. I am only 40, but I have put my body through hell working in manufacturing for 20 years. I recently started to notice a buzzing feeling along with a stuttering sensation with my heart. I had a full cardio stress done, which I passed. I decided to try Extendivite after getting the jingle stuck in my head. Halfway through the bottle, I really did notice a difference. After getting home from work, I would just sit in a chair for a few hours feeling like crap, and this stuff reduced that feeling along with heart discomfort to almost nothing. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. That's HEARTDROP.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Working 2 jobs ends never seem to meet. She often goes hungry so her babies can't eat. Fatherless son wears torn clothes to school. We're making fun of him's the only golden rule. She doesn't know she's a favorite daughter. If someone wants to help.
Welcome back to our show now. We're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, Michael. Very good day to you, Michael. And wow, that's a tough one to follow. Today, and last caller, Mike. Let me ask you. And by the way, Dan made a good call. Very good call by Dan.
Yes.
What I want to talk about is the last caller. Mike, do you listen to RBN? Do you listen to RBN, Mike?
On occasion, I
Mike,
really don't have a lot of time
Mike,
to.
Listen,
Okay.
I heard a puke call your show yesterday about me. But before look, I'm not. Listen, I'm the one that brings out information about immigration and other subjects. I want an apology from that woman too, that Eric Clapton wrote a song about. Okay, I want an apology from her. But before I go on her, Mike, I'm going to go to this. You know what do you call a dog that has puppies, Mike? What do you call her? What do you call a dog that have puppies?
Mothers.
Well, this is that guy in North Carolina named Bob. Okay? Who's this guy, Bob? This puke thing he is. Bob's going attacking me because I bring up information. Mike, give me a chance to defend myself.
Okay.
All right, I'll tame it down. Mike. This guy here calls your show with the last minute. This guy's talking crap about you, talking crap about me because I talk about he's a bumbling. This guy's a buffoon. Bob the buffoon. And he's what I told you about. A dog that have puppies. That's what he is. Now, Mike, I want to go back to Layla. I'm gonna get Layla know something. Layla, you called me out.
That's a bad move. Bad move, Tom.
Mike,
okay.
I don't care, Mike. She's calling out white men, saying all about they can go homeless. She's throwing out the white men. I'm a white man, very proud of my race. I'm a strong man. I used to bench 330 pounds on the bench. Can you do that, Mike? There's millions and millions and millions of other white men can do that. So we're not a bunch of sissified freaks like she's trying to make us sound. And by the way, Layla, you said I call the show all the time talking about that. I only talked about that twice on Mike's show. So I want an apology for that. She's always spewing out all these people she deserves an apology. I want an apology for how she's talking about one group of people and talking about me. So I want an apology. Now going back to this guy from North Carolina and the other guy's calling three of your great callers. I can name their names, Dan, Miles, and Tom, as clowns, and he'll take us all on the radio at once. I'll take any one of those guys from North Carolina on. You want to put me on the line with Doug?
No, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore because last time we did it.
This is getting ridiculous.
Okay.
This is getting ridiculous. These calls. I tried to bring out information, Mike. You have the great show.
Circus. You're out there in the center ring, with the juggling balls.
No, Mike. Yep. Listen, I know I'm a little excited. Look on RBN. I listen to your show and a few other shows. You have a great show, Mike. These guys are calling in. Listen, if you want to ban me from never talking about immigration again, never end a word, I will not talk about immigration. Let's talk about Mars, Mike. Why don't we talk about why don't we talk about Tiger Woods' injury? Tiger Woods, was he on drugs? Was he not on drugs? Was it an accident? I mean, these people are ridiculous, Mike. And you say you get emails about me talking about immigration. Well, let me ask you, what did that guy Bob ever said on your show? I never heard that guy before, Mike. What has he ever said and brought up to your show, quality information in your show? What has he told any of your listening audience about immigration? I don't hear this puke saying anything, except he's trying to call me a bumbling. Well, if I'm a bumbler, he's a buffoonery. That's what he is, a buffoon. Okay. I don't even call that because I bring out immigration, Mike.
Tom, okay. It is, we're getting, comments. People are tired of the bitching between the callers.
Thank you.
And
so am I, Mike. So am I.
Okay, well, then
I
you
call your show
set
to
the
try to get you
example.
information, Mike.
Set the example.
Okay, listen, I talk about what's going on in the inner cities, what the murder rate. That shouldn't be happening. We have 25,000 troops in Washington, D.C., but we don't have no troops in Chicago, Philadelphia, L.A. We got over 100,000, I won't say the word, Mike, 100,000 gangs and where. Figure it out. I mean, and these guys are always throwing me under the bus for talking about what I talk. There's one great call from Los Angeles. His name is Peter. He gives a lot of great information out, and he does give your audience a lot of perspective.
Okay,
That's what I try to do. I give perspective where I'm at.
Tom, can I give you a moment of clarity here?
Yes.
Nobody is throwing you under the bus about talking about immigration because we all acknowledge it is a serious problem. The complaints that we get is it's all you ever talk about and you keep saying the same things over and over and over again. It's a repeating rant and folks are interested in what you have to say as long as you move on to something else. And I'm in agreement with you that immigration is a major problem. I look at it more from the point of view of the economic impacts, of course. But again, about this war between the callers, we're getting complaints all over. And Tom, you could set the example by pulling back and not, hurling insults at the other callers.
Mike, listen here, Mike. I want a chance to defend myself like you got that lady. When she won't even tell you her name. Okay, I'm going to defend myself. Like, when I call about that subject, I be called because I witness it. I know I can feel what these angel mothers and fathers are going through. But I don't want to go there, Mike. I call your show to be informative about what I see, and I try to analyze it the best to my ability. Now, you got callers. This guy, I have never even heard this guy from North Carolina. I don't know if he's what the other North Carolina, how their ideology. But Mike, I don't try to throw any caller out. I try to be respectful. I'm a respectful person. You have some great callers on your show. I think they're tremendous. Okay, but unfortunately, you got some. I don't know if they're trolls. I don't know what these people are. I don't know what their motive. I think I know what their modus of operandi is, Mike. But I know my modus of operandi is. I'm very proud to be a Northern White European male, and I'm going to defend my Constitution and Bill of Rights the way I see it. And if they don't like it, they can lump it. Okay? Now, Mike, I don't call in your show to try to pick a bone with anybody. Okay? I just try to be honest, to the best of my ability. And look, Mike, it's to the point now I'm getting upset because I hear a guy like that call for like 20 seconds, throwing me out. What has this guy brought to your show? What has he informed any of your audience, Mike? I haven't heard this guy on your show in 6 months. Who is this guy? And I got to be thrown out because I don't call your show every day, Mike. Let's get that clear. I'm not like that one guy from Carolina.
Tom, nobody's talking about throwing you out. We're just trying to give you some guidance to be a better caller, which is to pull back on the vitriol, and understand that we've heard your comments about immigration, and for the most part, we agree with them. It's just we don't want to hear them over and over again every single day.
Mike.
Yeah,
Mike, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Look, I'll talk. You know what? We should turn your show into Art Bell. Let's go. Let's go. Let's talk about aliens for a whole month. How's that? We'll talk about the flying saucer was over the jet the other day, and the pilot's waiting. There's someone flying above me, looks like a cigar shape. We'll talk about that for a month. Why not? Let's just get off immigration and the economy and the capital right. Let's talk about UFOs. They could be taken over. And you know what? If they came down here to get rid of my taxes, I'd join them. If they were to come down down to Earth and they were to get rid of all my problems, you know what? I'll become an alien. How's that? I'll become a UFO.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Starship pulled up here, I'd probably put out the thumb and say, let's go. But I think what that pilot saw the other day was a military test. They're doing a lot of testing up there. We had that story yesterday where 2 F-117 Nighthawks were photographed flying over Los Angeles, even though officially they are retired. So there's probably a lot of stuff up there being tested right now. And what's really interesting is Hollywood will push UFOs and aliens and flying saucers at the same time these tests are going on, so that when people accidentally spot one of these black project aircraft development programs, they'll just jump to the conclusion it's an alien spaceship, and nobody will then listen to them when they say, I saw this weird thing traveling really fast.
Well, Mike, listen. Look, let's talk about this for a whole month. You know what? Get off everything. Let's talk about science fiction stuff. No, matter of fact, let's talk about Tesla. What he did, awesome stuff he did. Let's talk about this guy here in Florida here that built the Coral Castle. Let's talk. What did he have? He had a little box, and he's picking up 15-ton boulders. How is this guy doing that? He had to use a lot of sound waves. How is a guy that only weighed 88 pounds picking up 13-ton boulders and setting them and making a castle out of them? And he made rocking chairs out of 5-ton coral, and he made them in the rock.
Yeah, I remember. I saw a documentary about that, and it never got a documentary. But in the Hollywood Hills, there's another home just like that. That is all rock and mortar, and it's a beautiful garden, and it hasn't received the attention I think it deserves. But there's
it's a small place. It's a small place. I'll take you if you ever come down. I'll take you over there. It's a small place, but it is an amazing place. And the way he built that was incredible. And but accordingly, the guy built it with a little box. The box was like only 2 foot by 2 foot, okay, in a square. So he built this amazing castle using a box and levitating these giant boulders, coral boulders.
Well, I don't know about that part of it.
I'm all with it. Well, I know all about it because Mike, I've been there hundreds of times. I can tell you all about the theory behind it. It had to be like magnetic sound wave, or like you had a pruning fork or something. It's just amazing. Now, the thing, if you want to talk about that too, is amazing during that time, Mike. If they were to put this guy, Edward Lee Scallion, with Nikolai Tesla in the same room, say they had like like we had to see. If they were to put those two guys in the same room, even throwing Thomas Edison or whatever great inventors were at the time.
Well, that would not have been a good move because Edison screwed Tesla over. So did George Westinghouse.
He did. He sure did. Yeah, they stabbed him in the back. And Tesla, what I'm saying is, basically, let's put Tesla and Edward Lee Scallion in a room
So did
together.
Marconi, for that matter.
Can you imagine
Marconi stood over Tesla.
Yes, he did. That's right. He did.
Yeah.
The radio wave. But
Yes.
Scallion was a very humble man. He was a very skinny little man, but he had the technology between him and Tesla would have been universal shattering. Let's put it that way. It would have been massively shattering of the two brains together if they could have. And actually, they lived at the same time. Now, that's the saddest thing, I think, in science, that Tesla and Edward Lee Scallion were not put together in the same room to compare technologies and ideologies and stuff. So that would have been
Tesla went where people were willing to give him money to do his work here, but then he wound up getting shorted on the back end. Anyway, Tom, listen, we're running out of time, and I got a bunch of other callers waiting to go on there. So thank you very much. We're going to let you go and switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, you might be familiar with the saying that apathy is the last virtue of a dying society.
Yes, I have heard that.
Yeah, and for
But I
those
don't
who are
care.
indifferent to, maintaining their racial stock, the actual genetic stock of the founders of a nation, and are against eugenics and are for mixed race marriages, I would argue those are the views of a nation in decline. And so those views, although they've been promulgated in the media and sanctified in law, that doesn't mean our nation will continue or be the pinnacle of nations for longer. If anything, we're soon to become a third world nation. And I think that's
would
pretty
agree
evident.
with that. I would agree with that. In fact, I look at the decadence we are seeing within our government, within our society, and it seems to have an historical precedent with ancient Rome just before they fell apart. I do look at all this this craziness here, transgender for children and everything. That's, to me, not a symptom of a healthy society.
Exactly. And the adoption of those views, I would argue that first came interracial marriage in 1960. And then a while later came the next normalization of degeneracy, like having lots of children out of wedlock, right? And then later on becomes homosexual marriage. Before you know it, in the current era, it's, mass transvestitism going on.
Yep.
And the promotion of, mutilating genitals of children. And so these are because people are apathetic. Nobody wants to stand up and say, like I will, at least, I'm for eugenism. Right. And I've argued this before. And by the way, for the anti-eugenicists out there, I urge them to volunteer their time working with the deformed and the handicapped. You can go down and volunteer and actually work with them and donate your free time. If you actually care for the deformed and the handicapped you want to bring into the world, instead of just presenting like you're Mr. Do-Gooder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, but, not all the deformed and handicapped are the result of breeding. I mean, look at the thalidomide disaster. That produced a generation of children needing all kinds of care, and that had absolutely nothing to do with the race of the parents.
True. But let me say this, though, about eugenics. Now, listen, in 450 BC, the Romans codified in their law, and it's called the Laws of the 12 Tables, that basically you are to euthanize deformed infants. You're not supposed to tolerate them. And notice that's at the ascent of Rome, and Rome lasted for 1,200 years.
Yes.
Notice that? Also, nations like Norway and Iceland abort their Down syndrome babies. They say in Iceland, you will not find any Down syndrome people whatsoever. They've all been aborted. And notice, God has yet to punish them for doing so. Notice those nations are doing fine.
I'm not sure how this fits in with the overall concept of eugenics, which is selective breeding to improve the race here. And by the way, in ancient Hawaii, before the missionaries showed up, malformed babies were thrown in the ocean. So it's one of the reasons why, prior to the missionaries, the Hawaiians had the cleanest gene pool of pretty much any people on planet Earth.
Okay, now listen. Norway, like I said, practices eugenics through abortion. Okay. And guess what? In the Winter Olympics, when it was held in Norway, right? Here they are, a country of 4 million people, and they won more medals than any other nation on earth. More medals for Norway than the United States, Canada, or Russia. So that tells you
that was probably the Winter Olympics, right?
Through their eugenics practices, they bred a healthy, strong people.
Okay.
And so that it's led to results. And by the way, we could also say the nations that practice eugenics, the Scandinavian nations, and China, because as we know, China has a large abortion rate, and
yes, they
China,
do.
Likewise, is in the ascent. They're in the ascent.
Well,
and
they're
so
balancing their population against the economic need, something that has gone tremendously out of balance in this country, especially with the open border immigration.
Well, that's another factor. Right, and that's because we're apathetic about protecting our society. Right, and that's why we're in decline.
Well, we're in decline for a lot of reasons. That's one of them. I think we've got decades of poor politics really destroying the country that is its host. Okay?
I would also propound that it's also because of diversity itself, that there's no unifying ethnic identity, and because of that, it's everyone out for themselves, and so there's nothing unifying us except for the bizarre concept of the Constitution, that, you know, the concept nation. And a lot of people who adhere to this concept nation are the same people who advocate dysgenics, race mixing, and other, what I would say, destructive, methods of destroying the racial stock of the nation. And this is what's happening. Okay. And I'm just going to finish up and let other callers.
Because we're almost out of time.
I urge people to go watch I just urge people to watch The Jolly Heretic, Dr. Edward Dutton, over at YouTube. And he has very interesting concepts on the decay of the United Kingdom and what he calls mutational load and spiteful mutants. And I urge your audience to look him up on YouTube, Dr. Edward Dutton. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to break our normal one caller per day rule. Layla in Canada has called back in and apparently has a clarification. So, Layla, what's on your mind?
Yes, this is a comment for Tom. Tom, I don't know why you think that I was criticizing you. Perhaps I expressed myself badly in the conversation where you think I did that. I was actually saying that you were correct, except you had not taken it further and drawn attention to the consequences of what immigration will bring. If you have listened to any of my previous calls with regard to immigration, I have called those illegal migrants thieves, because they want the freebies, the safety net that was built by the Americans who sacrificed their lives, suffered immensely to build the country and to provide the safety networks for those who are entitled to benefit from it. And they are coming here to steal it. So what I was saying is that if the black men marry the white women, what happens to the white men? I didn't suggest that that was today, that white men today were wimps or anything else. On the contrary, I was supporting all of your contentions, or your one primary contention, that immigration is bad for this country. It is, you are correct.
Yes.
It is very bad for any country, and all countries that want to survive always have an immigrant or a border protection system. I know that because Palestine had no government, it had no national military, it had no rules with regard to immigration. So illegal migrants, Jews coming over from Europe, were able to take over, smuggle in the illegal arms from Czechoslovakia until they had the opportunity to kill the defenseless civilians and take over the land.
All right. Well,
I apologize to you if I said something.
I appreciate that. I
said
appreciate your
anything
apologizing
that-
and pulling back, and maybe it's the start of a trend where the callers respect each other a little bit more. I am going to have to let you go, though, because we're almost out of time, and we got phone calls, lines full of phone calls. So let's go to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Are you talking to Glenn or are you talking to Kelly?
Oh, I guess I'm talking to Kelly. My mistake. Kelly in Austin, what's on your mind?
Well, a couple of things. I think a lot of your callers need to ignore what they think are personal attacks. It really gets old. I'm tired of hearing this.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of emails saying that, it's almost enough to make them turn the show off.
Right. I want to say, Paul from New Jersey, excellent call. Excellent call. I agree with everything you said there.
Okay.
I watched All Wars and Bankers Wars again recently. Outstanding YouTube presentation there. Now, what I want to tell you, the reason I call you was earlier in the program, you mentioned something about automation and employment.
Yes.
Back in 1950, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. published a novel called Player Piano. And in that novel, that novel addresses the issue of complete automation of the economy after a Third World War, and the effect that has on the dignity of the human worker.
Agreed. Yes.
And I suggest that people who are interested in this matter find that novel and read it. It is his first novel, and it's an outstanding novel because really he delves into this issue on a level that only Vonnegut could do.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a novel that really needs to be read, especially now since we find that many jobs are going to be taken over by automation. That's all I have to say, Mike. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mitchell in Memphis. Hello, Mitchell. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. What's going on? You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You were on the air.
I don't really have time to lay it out. I will say this. I waited a long time listening to, sounds like school kids fighting.
Yes,
but
it
at any
does,
rate,
doesn't it?
one of your, I'll just go ahead and say this. Peter, I think from Los Angeles, I think maybe has come the closest with an observation of what's going on in this country. But when you talk about all of these bad people, where he talks about the Zionists are doing this, or if you talk about the military industrial complex, the bureaucrats, academia, the banking cartel, the anti-white agenda, all of these bad groups. What I would like for Peter to focus on is, we know, okay, they're doing these things. How are they carrying out these actions? These bad people are carrying out these actions by using government.
Yes.
If they don't have the government power, they can't carry out these actions. And nobody's talking about this. We've come a long way in this society. If I were to read, I'm even scared to, but let's go to the Declaration of Independence, one of the founding documents, and it says in there talking about it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such a government and provide new guards for future security. What I just said on the radio could possibly get me a prison sentence. Someone could say that I just said something seditious.
Yeah, they could. I mean, that's
we're getting to a
the
point where we
state
can't
that
even
we're
read
in.
the
We
founding
don't have the
documents
First Amendment
without
anymore.
getting a prison sentence.
All right. Well, Mitchell, I hate to do this to you, but the music is playing, and that means the show is over. And I apologize deeply to all the callers waiting on hold who did not get on the air. All I can say is please call in early tomorrow, and we'll let you all get your turn. And we are going to try and slap down on some of the school child behavior from some of the callers because, people are actually calling the office at RBN saying that they're tired of hearing the bickering and the name calling. And so we've got to really tone it down. I'm going to get myself a fire hose and start spraying these callers and cool them down. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please